Alright, fourth and fifth time's a charm, I guess. I ain't got no fancy teleprompter. I'm going to be reading off of the screen down below the camera. So, if I'm looking down a lot, forgive me. This is my first video, so cut me some slack. Alright? Alright, here we go. My experience, for lack of a better way to explain it. I was outside taking a smoke break at work, reading some comments about the series The Chosen on Facebook. I posted a comment about my favorite scene of the first season. The scene is one where Jesus is healing the paralytic. Jesus is teaching in the kitchen of a house when a paralyzed man is lowered through the ceiling, with a woman begging Jesus to heal the man. She says, "You can do this. I know you can." She had seen him heal the leper on the road. Jesus looks up at the woman and says, "Your faith is beautiful." This has caused a commotion, as there was a large crowd gathered to hear him teach, inside and outside of the home. The Pharisee notices the crowd and comes to a window and demands of Jesus, "Under whose authority do you teach?" And a few more questions. I say all that so you'd know for the setup for my favorite scene, and so that maybe it will help me in understanding what happened to me today. Jesus looks at the Pharisee with a sadness and resignation. This will be his truly public miracle, and he knows what the inevitable end is going to be. Then you see the confidence, the power, and the wisdom return to his eyes. He looks down at the crippled man and says, "Son, take heart. Your sins are forgiven." The Pharisee, shocked at these words, looks just flabbergasted. Jesus looks him right in the eye and said, "Who is this that speaks blasphemies? Who can forgive sin but God alone, right? But I ask you, which is easier to say, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or 'Rise up and walk'?" He pauses, kind of shakes his head and says, "It is easy to say anything, no? But to show you, and so that you may know that the Son of Man has the authority on earth to forgive sins." Then the crippled man stands, and we know what Scripture says happens after that. But anyway, what he had said directly to the Pharisee, reading his thoughts and repeating them back to him, you could see that it shook the Pharisee to his core. I wrote my comment and was mentally running that scene back in my head. When it gets to the part of him speaking directly to the Pharisee, he's looking directly into the camera, and that's how I was seeing it in my head. But it was different a little, in that it felt like he was looking directly into my heart, directly into my soul. I got teary-eyed, as I usually do at this scene. I am a softie. But then it just kept coming, and slowly building. I managed to get myself back together, enough to get back to the room I was working on that day. I put some music on my headphones. A few songs played. I was kind of getting into the music, working away. Having an ordinary day is the point. My emotions went back to kinda normal. Then George Strait's Check Yes or No came on. I liked the song, so I was just kind of bebopping along with it. And the second verse hit. And the verse is, for any of you that don't know the song, "Now we're grown up and she's my wife. Still like two kids with stars in our eyes. Ain't much changed, I still chase Emmylou up and down the hall, around the bed in our room. Last night I took her out in a white limousine. 20 years together, she still gets to me. Can't believe it's been that long ago when we got started with just a little note." And I don't know if that's another piece of the puzzle. I kind of think so, because as soon as he sings the line, "She still gets to me," I had an image of my wife smiling up at me. She is kind of short. And I thought, she sure does. And wham! Every feeling of love I've ever had toward her just flooded me in a thunderclap. That's the only way I can describe it. From that first kiss excitement to that fresh and wonderful, exhilarating, excruciating feeling, that first moment you know you're in love. Then a feeling of a love so deep and profound. It physically weakened my knees, and I had to reach out a hand to steady myself. And I just started bawling, like I haven't since I was a very small child. I was just straight sobbing. Once I got myself together enough to text, I tried to explain it to my wife. She was a little freaked out, and I understand that. People send these kind of messages and then, have a tendency to off themselves. But I couldn't describe it to her. There was no words. I was worried she was thinking I was having a stroke or something. But as I was trying to explain and convey the absolutely indescribable, I realized that it was impossible. Sadly, I've pretty much done every drug out there. I've had adrenaline rushes from near-death experiences, but nothing like this. I am profoundly in love with my wife, but this feeling was so far beyond that, so different. I've never in my life experienced anything even remotely close to this in 48 years on this planet. I don't think I've ever witnessed anything like this outside of movies or reading about religious experiences. I saw a lot of things when I was in grade school. We were heavily involved with our church, which I'm not naming because I can't remember it. I saw people speaking in tongues, dancing around as if they were possessed. I don't know if they were faking or having some kind of experience from God. I truly don't know. I was only 8 or 9. But this didn't feel like that. Not to mention I was not in the midst of a highly charged church service. I was not even actively praying at that moment. Although I have done a lot more of that lately, and for a lot more reasons than usual. I don't know, it felt like God spoke into my heart. Not words, not images, just pure love. This was 7 hours ago at the time I wrote this. And I've gone back a few more times since to edit for spelling and such. And I was still getting uncontrollable tears days later, just thinking about it, remembering that feeling. And I'm still trying not to get choked up now. I don't know what to make of this. This was most definitely not like anything I've ever felt, period. I don't know what this could have mean for me. I've wrestled with that over the past few months. I need to print this out and take it to some pastors and have them read it and see what they say. Nobody I try and tell this story to seems to grasp the magnitude of how this felt to me. If you know me, you know I am not one to over-dramatize or exaggerate things. In fact, if someone is telling a shared story or experience, and they begin to do that, I usually try and steer it back toward reality. I just feel that if it's something someone else should know about, they need accurate facts, not exaggeration. But there's no way I could exaggerate this. No amount of exaggeration would even come close to describing it. Over the past few months, I think we all have been praying a little harder, a little more desperately than we were just a year ago. I know I have been. Praying for my family, for my country, for our world. These have been extraordinary times in our lives. Since September of 2001, we have been at war as a nation. We have weathered great economic upheaval, dot-com bubble, the housing collapse, Great Recession, and the rebuilding of our economy that went to heights unheard of 20 years ago. Unemployment was at its lowest level since accurate records have been kept across the board. That means for every demographic. Black, white, man, woman, doesn't matter. If you wanted a job, there was a job out there. And until 2019, and China gave the world a plague for Christmas. Was it intentional by China? Who knows? But I believe in my heart that it was intentional by God. He's showing the faithful signs. I truly believe that now. Last summer, fires in Australia, giant swarms of locusts in Africa, civil unrest everywhere, wars, rumors of wars. I think before long we're going to see a world leader emerge. And he will look like the greatest man since Christ himself. He will be almost universally loved. He will be a champion of progressive causes, and he will be the Antichrist. I still don't know what to make of this. God has not chosen to give me understanding. But he has given me a drive to write about it, to share it. But given what is going on in this country right now, I can't help but think it has something to do with that. Right now around the world, Christians are being persecuted like hasn't happened to them in over 1,600 years. Last time it was this bad, it was the Romans were the great world power. But it's only going to get worse. Technology is censoring people. We have no freedom of speech anymore. I don't know. I have never seen myself as any kind of leader, but I'm not a blind follower either. I think for myself and I make my own decisions. Just ask my parents. They gave me so much good advice growing up that I could write a couple volumes. Now, as anyone that knows me knows, I rarely took that advice. Much to my own detriment, as it turned out. Something had to have stuck, though, because I've never been to prison. I've been to jail a couple times, but never prison. And never as part of some sentence handed down on me. Only ever due to my own stupidity. And I'm told I have a good heart. I try and help all those I can, or I am able to. As I said earlier, I went to church pretty regularly up till about 5th grade, when for reasons unknown to me, we just stopped going. I had attended the church's school for a year or two. I truly can't remember that much of it. It was, I know, part of my 3rd grade year. But as I grew into junior high and high school, I was inundated with public school science and very little in the way of spiritual growth. So my belief and faith faded. Looking back, I think it was more teenage rebellion than any true renouncement of my faith. But I was also a very patriotic teen, and I think and blame all the 80s action movies. My favorites were First Blood and Red Dawn. Having come into adulthood at the tail end of the Cold War, we had a bogeyman in the Russians and any other communist that we were told to be afraid of. But by this point, I mean basically my high school days, most of us already saw the writing on the wall that the USSR was done. And the US was alone as the world's remaining superpower. We weren't so afraid anymore. We had a cool guy in the White House. Looking back at how much everyone liked this guy, including me in the beginning, makes me shudder. He was cool. He played the saxophone on the Arsenio Hall show, for crying out loud. Then I started seeing him and his wife for who they truly are, and my eyes started to be opened by Waco, by Ruby Ridge, and other instances. And it was during this time when a whole bunch of Americans were relishing in the end of the Cold War and feeling a surge of patriotism after we quite literally completely destroyed the Iraqi military. It was during this time, my senior year in high school, that I enlisted in the Army. I'm not going to get into specifics, but shortly after graduating from basic training, while I was at advanced individual training to become a light-wheeled vehicle mechanic, the Army and I parted ways, sort of amicably. I was slightly disillusioned by the job I was going into. When I enlisted, I had envisioned going into a combat role, most likely infantry, or at the very least something high-tech in support of the combat arms. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the mechanics in the military. They have a very important job to do. But it was not what I wanted as a career. I came home and began working in construction. I tried a lot of different trades. I started off with concrete, building basements, because I had 2 uncles that made pretty good money doing this. This was by far the most physically demanding job I have ever had. And to this day, I give those 2 uncles a lot of respect for being able to do that job. I tried doing drywall work because I had another uncle that did that. It wasn't a hard job. I just didn't like doing it. And at 20 years old, you feel that jobs just fall out of the trees and land in your hands. So I bounced around from job to job for a few years: restaurants, warehouse, manufacturing, shipping and receiving. Then in '97, I began working for my dad in one of the few construction trades that I had not dipped my toes in the water of. During this time, I had gotten married and had 2 children. Short version of that is I got my high school girlfriend pregnant and we got married. We tried to make a go of it for 10 years and then we just gave up. I assume she's much happier now, as I am much happier now. But I'm writing my story, not that story. That's a story for another time. Suffice to say, it was 10 years of my life that helped shape the man I became. For about a decade after, I became a drunk. I know that sounds blunt, but it is the truth. I had been married since about a month prior to graduating from high school, almost to the day. So I did not have those wild, crazy early 20s that most people go through in college or whatever. They were delayed. I was spending nearly every night in the bar, surrounded by people that claimed to be my friends. That lasted for about a year. Then I started drinking at home to avoid another DUI, which it just delayed the inevitable second one. And it would have been my third, fourth, and on, if not for my wife. She had just went through a very rough marriage, which is her story to tell, not mine. We had dated in junior high. I was in 7th grade, she was in 9th. And I moved during the Christmas break. We didn't even get a chance to break up because I didn't want to break up with her, but we were moving and I thought I could make it work, and it just, nothing worked. But we ended up getting back in contact with each other in 2005. And she ended up moving back up here, getting a divorce. But, we'd talked on the computer. She would tell me what was going on down there, and I would tell her things that were happening in my life. I left out the drunk part. And really, who wants to admit that? And even drunk, I'm a nice guy. I might get sappy or emotional or just really goofy. I wasn't a violent drunk, is what I'm trying to say. And I thank God for that. She fell in love with me, and I fell in love with her. She put up with a lot from me, and lost jobs, missed responsibilities, and just general disappointment in the man she saw more in than I did. As cliche goes, she loved me when I couldn't love myself. Thankfully, on October 28th of 2015, I sobered up. That was the last time I ever got drunk. God willing, I never will again. And before that, when I was doing electrical work, I had done it for about 10 years. Since then, I've done other construction jobs, which my favorite was framing new houses. If I'd found that career earlier, I may have never became an electrician. It was awesome to be able to show up to a bare concrete basement and within weeks have a $750,000 house. To actually see the house literally grow by your hand. Pretty cool to watch. I did that for 2.5 years or so. Then, mainly due to my back, I left that and went to work as a CNA. Yeah, I know, still hard on your back. At least it was inside. My last summer framing houses, I had nearly died of dehydration and heat exhaustion. I did the CNA work for another 2 years or so, also working in the kitchen at the assisted living facility because I had restaurant experience. Then in 2019, we moved to Fort Scott, Kansas, and I got the job I have now. I'm a maintenance man for a national hotel chain. It allows me to use all the skills I've learned over the course of nearly half a century on this earth. It's inside most of the time. I have a boss that truly appreciates my effort and the work I do. I haven't really had that since I worked for my dad. And that is my life to this point. The Reader's Digest version anyway. See, dear viewer, I write all this to say I'm a man of deep faith, but shallow religious knowledge or experience. True, in my early 30s, when I first truly started making an effort to get sober, I joined a church under an amazing pastor, Tim. He was an awesome guy. Loved him. Loved the church. But I just wasn't ready for that level of faith and commitment. And I wasn't done drinking. Well, I thought I was, but I still had some groveling to do. While I was a member of Knox, I threw myself into several commitments that interested me. I joined the Thirst Service Committee, which was a service for young adults, teens. I was in my early 30s, so it kind of fit me. I joined the drama team, the missions committee. The drama team was my favorite of these. I was asked to do a monologue for the Christmas program that year. I did the best I could to memorize that monologue. In the end, I memorized most of it and improvised the rest. I was supposed to be the innkeeper that had to turn away Mary and Joseph. The members of the congregation that said anything to me about it thought it was wonderful. I was not so sure. I ended up going on a mission trip to Spain, which was amazing, very beautiful country. I met the pastor of the church. Paul and his wife attended an evangelical church. In a country that is still very much part of the Roman Catholic Church, evangelical church Christians are shunned by the Catholics and can find it hard to get work. I was able to see Roman ruins that were nearly 2,000 years old. I walked through an amphitheater, through a chariot racing arena, track, I don't know what you call it. It's aqueducts that still carried water in them. Madeira, I think, was the name of the town. It was about an hour from Badajoz, where we were staying. And even with these opportunities and graces that God was heaping on me, I still wasn't done drinking. To be quite honest, the final straw for my weak human mind was one night, in a drunken stupor, I fell and bumped my head. The fall caused a minor cut to my scalp, and it bled something fierce. Not that I was aware of that at the time, and I do not have a clue what I was doing at that time, as I was blackout drunk. I figured this out the next morning, when thankfully God decided to have a little more mercy on this poor fool and woke me up, instead of just letting that bump on the head carry me off. Because if you had asked me the night before, I would have said no way. There was nothing about me worth saving. I couldn't manage to string more than a few weeks, maybe a couple months together when I didn't get blind drunk at least once. But that morning when I woke up, with my eyes crusted shut with blood, my head felt like it had been used for an artillery bombardment, I was done. I knew right then I was done. Having a mom that was a nurse, and me in and out of the medical field from high school on, I knew how easy it would be for just a knock on the head to just never wake up. So October 28th, I hit 5 years. And looking back on it, it has been easier than I ever thought possible. I'm not going to say it was an answer to a prayer, because frankly, I'd prayed for sobriety before, and it had always eluded me. So I did not have much faith that God was going to heal me. I truly thought this was how I am stuck being. I did not blame anyone else. I did not blame God. I blamed myself. I knew it was my choices that had led me to where I was. My choices that kept me where I was. But after that morning, I just didn't drink anymore. Now it was how my brain referred to it from that point forward. In my mind, there wasn't a light bulb moment. It just happened. When I thought about it, it wasn't, I'm trying to quit drinking. It was just a statement my brain said to itself. Without my consent or foreknowledge, I don't drink anymore. Now, as you can probably tell, I wrote most of this a few months ago. Since I've written it, a lot of things have happened in our country. The changes in our country are now happening very fast, and at least for a lot of us, it is pretty scary. My purpose in starting this channel, or making this video, or whatever it ends up being, is to maybe give some hope to those of us that are seeing our country being ripped apart and destroyed from the inside out. As Abraham Lincoln said, paraphrased, America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. The original words he spoke are a little more powerful than what that is distilled down to in this previous quote. And here's those words. At what point, then, is the danger to be expected? I answer, if it ever reach us, it must spring up amongst us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. And I for one do not want to see that happen. But if it is our lot to be destroyed, I would want to be one of the ones to make life a little easier, maybe giving a little comfort to others, a little hope. So please say a prayer for me and for our nation. When this thing happened to me, I was not searching for a new path. I was not searching for any purpose. I felt like I had one. To be a good husband, a good father, a good grandfather. Now, after this, I feel like something is being opened up for me. Some truth in my heart was laid bare. One thing that has become clear to me through this and from this: God's love is greater than any power on earth. It is stronger than all the forces of nature and physics. As for me, I am a protector, a sheepdog among the flock. I ain't no gung-ho warrior, I'm not a soldier any longer, though I will uphold that oath I took. I am not trained in tactics or strategy, but I do have a faith that my purpose is being revealed to me a little at a time. I think the entirety of the Christian world is going to be coming under assault in the coming months and years in ways we have not experienced in millennia. We are going to be put to the test in the crucible of the book of Revelations. We're going to have to come together as one Christian community and love and protect each other. We will have to share resources, figure out some way to run something akin to the Underground Railroad, find a way to allow Christians to trade, to help each other. Because the day is coming very soon when we won't be able to work, to open a bank account, to buy groceries or rent an apartment without the approval of some progressive in power. Companies have already begun inserting into their employees little chips. Now, I don't know if it's the mark of the beast, but it sure has a lot of the same characteristics. Granted, they can put it anywhere. Back of your hand, head, wherever. There's another technology that Elon Musk is working on called Neuralink. It puts a little microchip on the brain with little nano wires going down into the attached to different regions of the brain to allow paralyzed people to walk and basically allow your brain to connect to a computer. Scary stuff considering the technology out there today and surveillance and our already limited amount of free speech because of certain technology companies. But I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I feel the need to network with other Christians that feel the same as I do, that feel that we are on the verge of something monumental. I also have this drive, almost the need to write, create videos. Maybe. I truly do not know. But I'm going to give it a shot and see where it goes. If my story touches you or moves you in any way, please share it with others. Like this video. Maybe subscribe to my channel. We will see where all this will lead to. God bless you. God bless America. Stay faithful. Have strength.